Hey everyone, Alyssa Lightman here with Realty One Group Dockside, and welcome back to the Lightman Show. Make sure you give this video a like, share, and subscribe with your friends and family. And you can also comment below with any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss in the next videos. Today we'll be talking about getting ready to put your home on the market. So, ready, set, go! Documents you need to list your property. So before you put your home on the market, there are just a few things that you need to get together and make sure you know before you put your home on the market. So what do you guys think? What are the things that they might need to put together before they list their home?
I would suggest knowing what you need to do to fix your home first. So a home inspection might be a great idea for you to at least know. So when the buyer comes in and they say, well, this is looking bad or that's looking bad, you actually have a professional opinion on really what's wrong with your home.
Exactly. That way you're ready and you have some leverage with that as well.
Sure.
Right?
To protect yourself.
Right. Before you list, you might want to review your current deed as well to make sure that whoever you believe is on the house on that deed that is actually the person on that deed
always a good
or
idea.
Persons, and how it's review how it's currently owned. Because those things make a difference going forward, and you certainly, if there was an estate and someone had passed away, then we need probate documents as well. If it's a mobile home, we may need a DMV car title. If it's an LLC as the owner, then we will need your corporate documents. There are a lot of possibilities depending upon who's listed on that title to the property.
Right. Okay, so first thing we need to make sure who's on the deed and get all these people together and get them to agree, of course, on one thing. You're listing the home, you're putting it on the market. Make sure that you get maybe an inspection on your home and find out what's going on, what you can fix, so you know beforehand. What else can we get? Like maybe a list of utilities, maybe the sellers can get that.
That's always helpful for a buyer to know, who they're going to have to contact after the property is theirs. And also, if the seller can go ahead and contact their HOA, buyers quite often ask for a copy of the covenants, conditions, and restrictions.
Very good, yes.
For instance, a buyer might want to know if they can put a fence on the property. And so instead of just saying yes and making yourself as a seller liable, it's better to just provide them with a copy of the rules and regulations of the HOA.
Yes, and a lot of times it is contingent on the HOA, on the budget. Especially if it's a rental maybe or a resort, things like
Some
that.
HOAs require you; they won't let you have a fence unless you have a pool.
Oh,
Some HOAs do that
well,
too.
there you go.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a good point too. Some people that are coming down and moving into the area like to rent the property. So that's something you want to know through the HOA if that's allowable. And then just the contact information, because the contact information is very important. It helps speed up the process.
Yeah.
And if they can rent it, can they rent it weekly or do they have to rent it monthly? All those things.
Long term, short term, can they change the locks? That's a big question that a lot of people have when it comes to rentals.
Emergency numbers too. I found that when people know the emergency numbers, good contacts, and maybe some general medical, government.
Who's available around that they can call right away. That's very, very good for them to know, especially if they're moving and they don't know the area very well. Or they haven't lived there, before.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think the sellers would need maybe an appraisal or an inspection on their home?
My opinion is a home inspection. For me personally and for family members and friends, I always suggest them to get a home inspection. And it's only because you really don't know what's wrong with your home. I mean, you live in it, and you're living in it thinking, that noise is no problem. I'm not going to worry about that.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you're selling your home, now that problem becomes
It's
your
a product
issue.
now, right?
So you're going to have to fix it one way or another.
So with an inspection, right, the buyer is most likely going to get one. And if you, as a seller, know what potential problems are in your home before you list it, you can either A, fix those problems and keep your sales price where you want it, right? Because if you don't fix those, let's say you didn't get an inspection and you said, I want to list it for $250 and you get an offer for $250, and then they do an inspection and they find out that there is a leak in the roof. Well, your options at that point are either reduce the sales price or fix that leak, you know. So if you had that inspection beforehand, you would have been able to make that decision without feeling like you were forced to do it. You know,
Right.
you could have taken appropriate action. you know.
Yeah, and also when you something like that, the buyer would now think, okay, should I get more to negotiate? And it's just a leverage thing that owners should have.
It can end up costing them more if they don't get an inspection and something is found wrong with the home.
For $300 to $400, putting your house on the market at $250,000 home, I think it's worth it for them to really understand what they have to offer.
Yeah.
And the leverage now becomes theirs, because the sellers can come in, or the buyers will come in and say, well, new roof, why don't we take 10 grand off? So, well, it's already incorporated in.
It happens a lot because they're thinking, okay, there's a leak, but maybe I need a whole new roof.
Right.
If it's not new as well.
Some things too with sellers that they don't realize. Understand what type of products are out there to protect them. For instance, there's renovation loans that are available that if they're selling as is, you can say, why don't you look into a renovation loan? Because that way there you can sell as is.
That's perfect. That's a great idea.
Or perhaps offer a home warranty.
Oh, well, that's it.
Yes.
That too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's another
That's
option.
another thing.
They
and
can put that on the
can help
MLS and
buyers.
offer the home warranty with it as well.
And it protects the sellers too, because the home warranty is effective the day it's ordered, right?
Yes. Yep.
So it's certainly a good option. And then appraisals, I think that if you have a unique home, you might want to get an appraisal.
Yes. If it's different than anything around the area, maybe in a historic area, then you might want to get an appraisal.
Right. If otherwise, I guess I'm on the fence there 50-50 about whether or not you really need an appraisal when you're listing it. Your agent is going to have tons of
Market
information
analysis
usually.
on
So
that, and usually, yes. Usually, we do a market analysis, and we give a range of what it could sell for. Now, we can't give you an exact number because everything is kind of relevant, but we give a range, and that usually works. But if it's a unique property, like you said, or historic area, then it could be a little more difficult. And sometimes even appraisers could have trouble appraising
absolutely,
a property.
because they have to have properties to compare it to. And if there aren't very many around,
The other side to that, though,
What can you do?
historical property could bring in other issues.
yeah,
So a buyer coming in wants to change the door, and maybe they're not allowed.
Right.
So these are things that you have to be, because it is unique, and under the Historical Society, I think they have certain guidelines that they have to follow.
right.
So it'd be something to really know, that if you're buying a home, or if you're the seller, to know what those guidelines would be, and have them
That's
ready.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Are there certain loans that you can only have with a historic property, or?
Not necessarily a certain loan, but there are certain guidelines that an owner of a home has to follow if their home is in a historical category.
If it's been deemed a historic home.
Yes.
Yeah.
In downtown Charleston, you see that a lot, because those homes are under heavy.
There's some in Conway here,
Well, I'm sure.
and I'm sure Georgetown
Yes.
as well.
Georgetown, Conway, Charleston, all these areas.
Things to be aware of, and as the seller, you want to know those so it doesn't affect you.
Because the more information you can offer to the buyer, the better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The more they know, the less questions, everything kind of falls through.
The more
and-
secure they feel in their
And
offer and in their
yes.
purchase. Yeah.
Well, what do you think about different offers? If I'm a homeowner and I get 2 or 3 offers, every offer has a certain type of financing, like a VA, a conventional, or an FHA. If they were all equal, what are the little differences in time and process? What's easier?
Well, it's a great question, because a conventional loan is I don't want to say is the easiest loan to get through. But when you're looking at the property itself, the issues with the home might not be an issue with a conventional, or what we call a Fannie Mae loan. Under VA and FHA, there's certain criteria that you definitely have to follow.
So they're more strict. Things need to be in a certain order.
Exactly.
For instance, if there was a termite inspection done and they found damage, those types of loans, FHA and VA, they required you to fix them, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Especially if the damage is severe, then it could really hurt the value, A, B, the cost to the seller. It gives more leverage to the buyer. So you want to really be careful of that stuff.
And so a conventional loan, if there was damage found, then a seller could potentially offer money, right? In exchange, instead of fixing the damage. But an FHA or a VA, that's most likely not a possibility. They have to fix the problem. They can't put money in its place.
And then there won't be any lending unless you change your loan altogether. And now you don't get the benefits of the FHA and the VA loan, right?
We're in a situation that's just like that,
Yeah,
right?
We
We had one that went through FHA and we found that going through conventional made it a much easier process.
Easier, yes.
And it helped the loan go through faster because of that.
And much easier because of the regulations with FHA and
the work that
and the VA
would have been required would have tied up. And another good point too is the work has to be completed. So if you don't own the home, will the seller let you go in and fix what needs to be fixed, right? So here's some issues that come up on the lender side a lot. If the home needs a new window, but the seller doesn't want to do it. So the buyer says, well, I'll go in and fix the window. But now that window is fixed or it improves the value of the home, the seller could say, well, since you did that, I can get more money for the home. So you really have to be careful on
what
what you're
happens
negotiating.
in that case, Angie? Like, what if that were to happen? Which I think it's
they would
very
still be
rare.
under contract. The seller would still be under contract usually.
Sure.
So depending upon, I guess, how much more value that fixed window, right, or fixed roof, right, gave to the home, I think would depend. And so it's always depends on the contract and if they're still under contract. And as a seller, is it to your advantage to breach that contract and take the risk that you might be sued by the buyer in an effort to get the extra money on a later sale? It all depends.
It's case by case, but it's happened.
I'm sure it did. Let's see here. We got some Q&As, and the first question here is from Linda, and she says, do I have to notify the HOA that I'm selling my home? Do you think it's important?
Not to my knowledge. Do you?
No.
Yeah.
Melissa, do you have any?
I don't think so. I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea to get the paperwork from the HOA because they're going to ask you for it anyways. The buyer's going to want to see them, and you're going to want to know if there's anything owed or if there's any transfer fees on that. But it's not a must.
Right.
It's just good to know. There's another thing for her question too. She asked, what do I need to ask for? So if she's calling the HOA anyways, what documents does she need to ask the HOA for?
So the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, any rules and regulations, anything that she would want to provide to the buyer. Specifically, a lot of HOAs, you mentioned transfer fees. A lot of HOAs do have transfer fees. That might be a fee to the seller for selling the property. It might be a fee to the buyer for buying the property as a capital contribution.
So there are two different ones.
Two different types of things. It could be either one. And it really depends on how the HOA classifies it as to how your attorney is going to determine who pays it. And sometimes what the HOA says regarding that, is indicative too. And those are issues that you're going to watch out for. You need to know those answers and those questions before you write and accept a contract, because in your contract, there is a section about those fees and who's going to pay them.
A live situation that happened a couple of months ago with a buyer. They couldn't have their vehicle on the driveway. It had to fit into the garage. So if the garage was not big enough to house that vehicle, that vehicle would have had to have been parked off premise. Right. So these are the little things that as a buyer you want to know what the actual rules are. And it's important to know that, because once you own the home, you're stuck with what the conditions are.
You're stuck with
it. You are. That's it.
That's it.
So just beware.
Absolutely. And the next question I have here is out-of-pocket expense when putting your home on the market. Now, I don't think there's anything in particular, unless there are things that are repairable that you know need to be repaired, need to be checked. For example, your HVAC system, if you haven't had that checked in a year or two, you probably want it to be serviced just to make sure everything is okay. What do you guys think?
I think every seller should plan to spend some money on paint.
That's always a good idea.
It is, because it can make such a difference when you walk into a home. It can bring the value of your home up just having nice, freshly painted walls.
Yes.
So I think that's an easy expense people can take care of.
Clean your rugs.
Yeah.
Clean the rugs.
When they come in, have it uncluttered, stage it properly, that type of stuff. I mean, that makes a big difference.
It helps a lot. There are properties that stay on the market for hundreds of days because of that reason.
There's simple fixes,
Yeah.
which are minimal cost.
Yeah.
So it's not really,
Little things.
and it is the little things that sell a home.
Yep.
So.
Let's move on to the next one. I think we did talk about that a little bit. Transfer fees, types of transfer fees, and what they are. We have talked a little bit about.
So the HOAs, right? They may have a transfer fee, and it may be a transfer fee. It may be a capital contribution. It could be as much as a percentage of the sales price. You need to keep an eye on those things and find out from your HOA in advance. But there are also another kind of transfer fee. It's state and county deed stamps. And it's basically a tax for selling the property that from the state and county. And typically the seller would be the one that's paying those things. And that is not a separate section in your contract, whereas the HOA things are a separate section in your contract. But we were talking earlier, and you had mentioned there are situations that you've gotten into a snag, because there are situations where the seller is not the one paying those deed stamps. And I know, tell me again.
Well, one was a foreclosure situation where
Right.
the bank decided that they weren't going to do it. So just make sure that your realtor is aware of that and negotiate that. And the other one was a builder. Builders don't usually like to pay the transfer tax.
They don't pay those transfer tax.
Yeah.
They also don't pay typically for recording the deed,
No,
which is only $10, but still.
they just pass it on to the buyer.
To the buyer,
Yeah.
yes, and the buyer gets to.
Yeah.
And it's all in the contract. It's all
And
how to
deed
negotiate up
stamps,
front.
right? Deed stamps are based on the sales price, and so that could be a high cost that you were not thinking you would have to
Yes.
pay, and so it's good to be knowledgeable up front as to whether or not if it's a foreclosure or if it's a builder. Pay attention to those things.
And that's where you rely on your agent. So you want
To
pick
make
that
the
up.
research and do everything
Sure.
to find out all these little expenses.
And if they're not paying
Can
that,
be-
they're not going to pay any
can be
seller's
important.
assessed,
Right.
which is another topic we can
Yes,
talk about
we'll
later.
talk about that in a few more episodes.
Sure.
Okay.
My top pick of the week is a luxury community that is a part of the Grand Dunes. In the early 2000s, Burroughs and Chapin Inc., the developers of the Grand Dunes, decided to bring a new level of luxury to Myrtle Beach. This community offers top amenities, with a members club, private golf course, the ocean club, tennis club, the marina, and many area attractions. Owners at the Grand Dunes enjoy a 25,000 square foot ocean club that boasts exquisite dining, oceanfront pools with food and beverage service, along with the meeting rooms and fun activities. The community also offers two 18-hole golf courses, including the area's only truly private course designed by Nick Rice, several restaurants, deepwater marina, and miles of biking and hiking trails. The Grand Dunes splits into a few different neighborhoods on the west side of the waterway, and more is building on the east side as well. 4 of the gated west side communities have gorgeous properties with the best views of the waterway. I will start with my favorite and most mature section, the Members Club. The Members Club is a stunning neighborhood of 176 sites. 40 of these offer waterway views, and about 12 lots are available for purchase. There are about 15 homes available on the market, and 5 are under contract. 12 homes have sold in the last 12 months, ranging between $805,000 and up to $2.2 million. The average days on the market is 141 days. Click on the link in the description below to see what's available now. Thank you for watching. Alyssa Lightman here, your host, and until next time, this is The Lightman Show.